Right, morning everyone. Thanks for having me today, Carolyn and Claire. I'm here to talk to you about recognition, enforcement and compliance from a DVSA point of view. So hopefully covering everything you'd be interested in, and the dreaded B word, I've got a bit of an update for you, but I will say it is correct now. After lunch, it could be different, there could be something got on, but I will give you the up-to-date information as I've been given it. We've got a tagline in DVSA, we've got an aim, which is helping you stay safe on Britain's roads. That's what we aim to do, that's what we think we do a good job at doing. But we do need to develop that, we need to change, we need to adapt, and I'll go through today the way in which we do that. So the way we do that is a change in focus. So we've brought in earn recognition. Is there anyone in the room that doesn't know what earn recognition is or hasn't heard of earn recognition? No? Good, my marketing's working, my manager will be very happy. So earn recognition is really for our consistently compliant operators, those that try to get it right all the time. We're not expecting them to be perfect, but what we are expecting is that they aim to get it perfect. And when things go wrong, they recognise things that go wrong. They don't try hiding from us, they keep a very honest and open relationship with us. And also we work with them to make sure that those same mistakes don't happen again. That's what we're looking for from an earn recognition operator. Now the next tier is our compliant operators, and compliant operators with a bit of support. We've set up a remote enforcement office, the REO. So they deal with these operators that we know are good operators and most of the time are always compliant, but once in a while they may slightly drop below that, but it's not the case of they need heavy roadside inspections or they need even a visit from DVSA. It can just be a letter, a bit of clarification as to what's happened. You will get that odd driver, you will get that odd vehicle, we appreciate that, and we want to work with you to help you stay compliant. So that's where the REO step in. Now the next one are our potential rule breakers. So they're the operators and the drivers that may say, I'm close to my driver's hours, but I think I can push it a bit. Oh, do I need that for my safety inspection? Can I give it another day or two, maybe another week or two? But most of the time they're pretty good, but there is always that potential there. So these are the ones that we'd stop at the roadside to try and prevent an accident from happening. Then you get the non-compliant. So the operators that aren't complying, sometimes that's lack of education, sometimes that's I don't know, sometimes that's laziness, sometimes it's cutting costs. These are the ones that we'll deal with by both the remote enforcement office, but also our roadside targeting, also by visits, and also assessments and investigations. Then we move on to where our main focus is and where I think it should be, the serial non-compliant. Those that aren't bothered about their safety inspection, those that don't care about their driver's hours, those that are undercutting you as compliant operators to go for those contracts. They're not bothered about safety. They're the ones that are driving down their cost to try and get those contracts. They're the ones that we will continually focus. We need to do this because we recognise we need to change that balance, we need to shift it. We recognise that to be a safe operator, you're going to be investing in good systems, keeping your vehicles safe, keeping them well maintained, keeping them MOT'd, employing decent drivers. For that, they probably want, above average wage or an average wage. And we recognise all of this comes at a cost, keeping your operator licence, things like that. Why is it acceptable then for a business or an operator to run without an operator licence, to run without safety inspections, to run without an MOT? All these things where they're trying to cut costs, that's not fair. That isn't an even playing field. But if we continue to focus on them at the roadside, so we stop them, so we impound them more, we issue them fixed penalties more, we take them to court more, we take them to public inquiry more, they get issued with more fines. Suddenly it's not so cheap anymore. It doesn't become cost effective for you to be non-compliant. So we raise the standard of the industry in general, and also those operators that are serial non-compliant either comply or deny. They are either in the scheme or they're out of the industry because it's not cost effective for them to be non-compliant anymore. That's what we're aiming towards. Right, so earn recognition. So I'll give you a bit of an update on the scheme. So I do head up the scheme. Sorry, have I suddenly got really loud? Or no, I've just gone close to the speaker. I head up the scheme for earn recognition. So it launched in April 2018. So it's still a relatively new scheme. We've achieved a fair bit. We've got about 8% of the UK fleet currently in the scheme. It is a growing number. And we are working on new benefits coming through. With earn recognition, you get a dedicated team that answer all your questions within DVSA. So I had a classic example the other week. One of my operators gave me a call and they said, Phil, I went for MOT. and human error, someone's entered one of the digits wrong. It does happen from time to time. But my insurance is due up, and technically my MOT documentation isn't correct. It's got the wrong information on there, it's got the wrong reg. Leave it with me. So I spoke to one of our guys, we phoned the ATF, got it sorted within 2 hours, and a new MOT certificate went out to them. They said a similar thing happened 2 years prior, and it took them about between the 14 and 28 days to get that sorted. So that alone is worth me joining. It's also a free scheme to join. What this also allows us to do is free up our resource. So for us to target those serial non-compliant, we need to free up examiners. To do that, we need to know the ones that are consistently compliant. Recognition recognises that due to the way that you report. So you report in KPIs, key performance indicators, to us on a 28-day rolling process. We look through that data. If there are issues, it's not the end of the world. We will contact you and come up with an action plan as required, or establish what's gone wrong and help you to prevent this from happening again. It's a little bit of a different way in which we work with you as an operator. It's a trust-based exercise, and hopefully you won't see us as the bad guys. And I appreciate that's a change in mindset. If you see us at the roadside, never a nice thing, but this is a different way of working. So this is what we're moving forward. Also, just want to bust a couple of myths out there. We don't have access to any of your data within recognition. I can assure you on a Saturday night, I'm not looking through your computer systems looking for a prohibition. We don't have access to them. Okay, so I'll move on from recognition now. So load security. So changes came in 2019. So we issued around 2,000 prohibitions a year for load security. It's still a major factor on our roads. So to remain a major compliant a major compliance issue for both DVSA and also for the health and safety executive. So previously, examiners were advised not, if needed to pull over operators or vehicles that they believed would be have a non-secure load. So they could only pull them over if there was a visible bulge in a curtain side or something like that, for example. Now that isn't the case. So we did a trial, giving examiners the option to inspect any curtain side vehicle with where load security could be a concern. And also the prohibition rate for them increased because they found a number of other defects with these vehicles. So the evidence is there that we need to move forward with these vehicles. So our guidance has changed regarding this for our examiners. So other changes include issuing an S-mark for load security prohibitions, and that will impact the OCRS scores for any operator. Fixed penalties will only be issued where a prohibition is S-marked regarding load securities, but it is still a major factor on our roads. Emissions. So we've got a bit of an update from our enforcement team. So since August 2017, we found over 500 vehicles with manipulation emissions control systems. So this is a major issue for us. This is, as we move forward with technologies, unfortunately there will always be those people out there that will try and find a way to manipulate or change those systems, and emissions is just one part of that. So a number of operators have also had action taken against their operator licences by the traffic commissioners over these devices. Okay. The good news is the volumes have significantly dropped, and there's now some awareness in the industry of the consequences. We've had to raise the consequences to put people off from doing it, and we're getting a bit smarter in the way that we work to find these devices. So we're currently working with DFT to look at the next phase of emissions checks for both vehicles testing and enforcement. New emissions testing equipment is being developed at the moment, and we're looking at the feasible way of using it. So on-board diagnostics, so your OBD equipment, control air network scan tool. So as we get the clean air zones that are coming in over some of the city centres, we'll look at a way in which we can adapt tools for this, and remote sensing equipment as well. So can we do this away from the vehicle? Is there a way that we can pick up these? And all of these are in development at the moment. So these could help detect vehicles with manipulation, illegal emission systems on newer vehicles as well. So we'll be able to pick up whether or not these devices are there. This will also mean that we're joining up with our European counterparts. Probably maybe not the right time to do it, but we'll be joining up with other European counterparts who experience similar issues as well. So we'll be working alongside them on them. Right, so moving on to safety recalls. So I'm sure you're all aware of issues going on regarding safety recalls. There's been plenty in the press, both in the trade and also anyone that watches Watchdog and programmes alike. There's been many a tale of safety recalls. So we have had to develop this and move forward a little bit in the way that we deal with safety recalls. So having a proper process for ensuring safety recalls are dealt with quickly is essential for running your fleet. Okay, so because of the lease time arrangements, we know that manufacturers find it hard to track commercial vehicle users. So this is an issue that we found in the industry. So we're working with the Traffic Commissioner's Office, DVLA, to use the operator licence data, along with DVLA registered keeper information to improve the ability to contact yourselves directly when there are vehicle issues for recalls. So our experience is that vehicle operators will respond quickly when a recall is issued, and will provide feedback to the Traffic Commissioner of any example where this isn't the case. So if we have made you aware of a vehicle recall and you fail to act on it, we may be informing the TC's office, so it's worth acting on it sooner rather than later. The safety recalls are there for a reason. The clue's in the title. There's a safety issue, a safety concern, so it's worth checking always. You can always check on gov.uk, so all the recalls lists are there, and I would advise that transport managers should be checking them on a regular basis, looking for safety recalls, especially when buying new vehicles. So we're also introducing a check for compliance with safety recalls, and our auditors for operators will be conducted by examiners. So part of the checks that you'll be getting from our vehicle examiners when they come and visit you will be whether or not you are keeping accurate records for your safety recalls. Okay. So moving on to NAS. So our National ANPR Service, or NAS. So this is something new that's been launched. It means that DVSA have access to the NAS network, which is the camera network around our motorways and major A roads. So the Home Office developed this single ANPR system called NAS for over 43 police forces in England and Wales, and 17 approved law enforcement agencies such as DVSA. So we've been trialling that. We are currently trialling it until April 2020, but we can use that information from NAS to take further action. So it will combine automatic number plate recognition data with especially analysis and intelligence to enforce. So MOTs on cars and light goods vehicles, driver's hours offences, tachograph manipulation, and learner driver and instruction offences. So to give you a bit of an idea of how big this change is for us, anyone got any idea previously to us going on to NAS how many cameras we had fixed up and down the road networks? Any idea? Anyone want to give a guess? 1,000? Couple of hundred? We had 37. With NAS, overnight, we've gone up to over 10,000. So it's a bit of a jump, to say the least, but it does make it easier for us to find offences in theory, but it also helps us to catch out the bad guys, the ones that are non-compliant. And I'll go into a bit more detail about how we do that. So like I say, we'll be using this trial to look at how it can be used to transform our targeted enforcement activities across Great Britain. So this is a new tool, and we will be developing. These are just what we're using it for at the moment, but the possibilities are endless at this point, so that's why it is on trial. But we have already had some successes from it. So, NAS Discovery-Trials, impounding of a minibus. So analysis of NAS data helped identify the best time location to impound this illegal operator from the Liverpool area. So through NAS, what we were able to do was see the activity for this business, this operator basically, who shouldn't have been using this vehicle. So we could pick out a time, we could pick out a location, and the way that we did that was by looking through NAS, we could pick up the routes that they were taking, what days they were leaving on, what times they were coming back to certain locations. So it's very easy for us then to send out a stopper car at said location, at said date and time, and stop that vehicle. A vehicle that we're being told isn't on the road. Well, we've just seen you on the road and we've stopped you on the road. So there kind of goes your defence to a degree. So NAS Discovery again, fraudulently issued MOT certificate. So we got intelligence through saying that an MOT garage has been using fraudulent MOT certificates. A search on NAS has identified a transit minibus on the road at the time of tests. DVSA will now remove the tester in question from the MOT scheme. So that vehicle there was seen on a motorway somewhere at said time. When we check our system, it says that it's in a garage somewhere being MOT'd. So what's the defence to that? It's got a time and a date stamp and location exactly where that vehicle is being driven on the highway. So there again goes the defence. But it does mean that we're taking MOT testers out of the scheme as well that aren't doing their jobs correctly. So again, from the trials of NAS, we've found manipulation devices. So during a night check at the A74, NAS data directly identifies several types of serious fraudulent activity. So this ranged from a vehicle fitted with a manipulation device to other vehicles being used with 2 driver cards for the same drivers. This has resulted in 3 cases being submitted to the prosecutor. So basically what we've had here, we've had various issues with manipulation devices. It's something that's been going on for a while regarding digital tachographs. So everything from magnet to more significant devices that are going through. Previously, we've had it where if you're using one of these devices, we can prosecute you, so the driver essentially. But we've not been able to push forward the transport manager who's advised them to use this device, or the operator who's fully aware that this device is fitted to their vehicle, or the person that's produced that device. But quite recently, there was a case that we took forward to the Crown prosecution that carried custodial sentences, and with that we were able to take everyone through. So we've started to see it come through where it's not just a case of if you're using the device, it's if you produce that device, you fit that device, you advise people to use that advice, we can take action on that. Also means as well with NAS, when that tachograph is showing that vehicle's stationary and they're on the road and it's moving, and again we have a time and date stamp and location that it's on the highway, there goes your defence straight away. We can prove that your vehicle was on the road. Previously I was a traffic examiner, and I can tell you we'd have to take something forward, we'd need to A, find that device on the vehicle. Bearing in mind some of these are about the size of a 5p piece. When you're doing that at the roadside, or you're in a lay-by somewhere and it's absolutely chucking it down with rain, and it's always a December or something like that. You never find them in the nice August times, but it's sunny. You're trying to find it, it's not the easiest thing to do. Then you have to go through downloading the events of the tachograph itself, prove that evidence, you're really looking for it. With the best will in the world, if this is going across an operator with multiple drivers, multiple vehicles, trying to find all the occurrences of that happening, it's near enough impossible, and that's a lot of resource from a DVSA point of view to put into one investigation. That's changed overnight with NAS. As soon as we get a photo, there you go, we've proven it straight away. So it's sped up our time a lot, and that again gives us the resource to target those serial non-compliant operators and vehicles. So moving on to vehicles used without an MOT. So one of the early trials we've started is around identifying vehicles used on the road without a valid MOT. So in these cases, overdue by more than 3 months. So far we've looked at 10,000 of these vehicles, and this returned a high level of offending for using a vehicle without an MOT. So DVSA's following this involvement with the police, MIB and DVLA initiative. So we will be taking them forward, focused on writing them letters to begin with, to see where we stand, and then we will be taking further enforcement action from these. We're seeing whether or not we can develop a form from our remote enforcement office, similar to what happens currently with speed cameras. So currently, if you, obviously I would never do this, but if someone was to speed through a camera, you get a letter sent to you with a time and date stamp to say this happened, and normally on some of them an image of the vehicle. We've got that capability with NAS, so we're seeing whether or not we can move something like that forward to take vehicles that aren't MOT'd off of our road, because ultimately it's a risk to all of us, anyone that uses our roads. Right, now I'm going to go on ever so briefly to the dreaded B word. I can tell it's all, the mood in the room really rose then, regarding Brexit. Now again, I will just say this information that I've been given was correct this morning, but by lunchtime it may have changed. So I will tell you what I've been told basically. So we have made preparations for Brexit, whether or not there is a deal or a no deal, and we have done for quite a lengthy amount of time. You've probably all heard of Operation Stack. Yeah, so these are things that we're looking into, and we have been working very closely with DVLA and also Central DFT on these matters. So permits, these are hot off the press. These were issued yesterday to our managers and going out to our examiners today. So these will be handed out to your drivers at the roadside as of today, but my colleague John helpfully has brought a box. So if you want to get one, you're more than welcome to grab one. This is the latest information, and it is for hauliers and commercial drivers. So it's transporting goods between the UK and EU in a no-deal Brexit guidance for hauliers. Within that, it is broken into different sections. Permits is in there as well, which is something that I know has only just come in. So that information is correct in there. But the advice is always check gov.uk. That will always have the latest information, because they can update there a lot quicker than they can update this. So that's the guidance for checking regarding permits. So traffic registration. So if you're using a trailer aboard, you should by now have registered it through the trailer registration scheme. Anyone not done that? Okay, and at ports we're still seeing trailers that are not registered. These run the risk of enforcement action in the EU now and post-Brexit. So if you do have a trailer and you've not registered it, please go to gov.uk and follow the links on there to do so. Driver CPC, so just a reminder, it's still needed now and post-exit for both drivers and transport managers, so there's no change there. Cabotage, that will be updated nearer the time as we get nearer that date. But again, check gov.uk for all the latest information on cabotage. Driver's hours rules. So EU driver's hours rules will be kept as law for UK journeys post-exit. For international journeys, unless there is a deal that changes things, AETR rules will apply, but the operators there for these follow the EU rules, so you should carry one as now, basically. So AETR rules to follow. Okay. So border readiness checks. Oh, sorry, bear with me. So before drivers turn up at the port, they must make sure that they have all the valid documents in place to avoid delays when going through any additional custom checks that may be in place. So failure to have the valid documentation will result in being turned away. So I would advise anyone that's going over to the EU post-Brexit, make sure that your drivers are aware of what is going to be required of them. Make sure you've checked what documentation they need. Make sure that the drivers are fully aware that they must carry this documentation with them. Anything that can that can help with delays and stop that from happening is going to be vital to your business. Okay, so Operation Brock. Like I said, DVSA enforcement teams are supporting Operation Brock in Kent in case delays at ports result in significant congestion. So we'll be enforcing the temporary traffic regulation order, or the TTRO, and fining drivers who do not comply and directing them to the back of the queue. So operators who commit offences associated with the TTRO could be reported to the traffic commissioners. So what we mean by that is we're trying to do a fair queuing system. So drivers that try to avoid that queue perhaps and avoid us will be sent to the back of the queue. So it's worth following the regulations. All right. Right, I appreciate your time and thank you for listening to me. Hopefully that covered everything that you want. Do you want me to take questions now, Carolyn? Yeah, so we're happy to take questions. I am joined by my colleague John, who's a vehicle examiner, who he may be able to answer something more mechanical than me, but happy to take any questions.
You just mentioned driver CPCs.
Yes.
Drivers and transport managers.
Yeah.
I didn't know, did the transport manager, if he does not drive, have to have current CPCs?
Oh.
I thought that's what you just said. Or I misinterpreted it.
So if your transport manager has got a CPC at the moment, they will still need to continue with that post-Brexit. Okay, so that won't change.
I don't know if I made myself clear. If drivers' CPC qualifications, they're 5 days every 7 years, does the transport manager have to have those if he doesn't drive?
No. No.
That's what
Yeah.
I understood.
Yeah, no, from that, if your transport manager has a CPC in place, basically, they will continue to need to have one in place post-Brexit, is what we're saying.
Any other questions?
Question on recognition?
Yes.
Is there any update yet on HS2 or 4s?
Right, so HS2, we're all ready to go. And I had my radio on and then they said about the review. So basically, everything is in place for recognition to be recognised by HS2, which basically means if you wanted to get a contract with HS2, you would need recognition or the equivalent. So that's currently where that stands. We can't do anything with it until the review comes through. Same with our TfL contracts as well. We will be going government-wide with recognition and possibly recognition equivalent, but at the moment with the political nature of a lot of things at the moment, everything's on hold for the time being, I'm afraid.
And you're going to update the standards as well for TfL. We've updated part of it already for HS2.
Yeah, so we'll have, what we've done with recognition is the modules coming through. So some of the other schemes out there, for example, say for instance you wanted a contract in central London, you may need to do X, Y and Z. But if you're a haulage company and you only work around the Yorkshire area, why are you paying out all that money on your vehicles for something that you don't really need? So what we've done optional modules. So if you wanted to go for HS2 or TfL contracts, for example, you pick that module and add it onto your recognition status. If you don't have to have those modules.
Thanks.
Probably got time for one more.
Non-compliant operators. They're only non-compliant if you find information on them. If you've got no information on the non-compliant operator, they'll never get stopped. If they're, say, localised, skip lorries or tippers that just run in an area that never gets checked, they might run for a long time before they even get noticed.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and that's where that change in focus comes through. So we have our check sites, and I'm sure people that want to avoid us avoid our check sites, and we're aware of that. Yeah. Yeah, and we need to become more flexible as an agency. I appreciate that, and the way that we do that is by freeing up resource. Because what we can't have is, say for instance, we've got a major check site, and then down the road from that major check site, there's a really bad accident, and we've not had it manned because we're out on mobiles everywhere. The question would be asked, well, why was no one at the DVSA check site to stop that vehicle from having an accident? But we haven't got unlimited examiners. But what we can do, we can target better. NAS will help that, and also so will recognition, because we're taking out your likelihood of getting stopped at the road for the compliant operators that are in recognition. So we will be able to be that bit more flexible. And these are all things that are developing, but I appreciate what you're saying, but we are, we're coming up with ways to tackle that.
Quick one.
Yeah, the NAS system that you've got, will it be capable of the foreign operators as well? Because you're talking about MOTs, you're talking about O-licenses,
Yeah.
you're talking about targeting. So what about targeting the foreign operators that are not compliant and they come over here on a regular basis?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and we're still trialling it till April next year, basically. So we are finding all this information out. We are speaking to our European counterparts and find out what information we can't share. That may also be dependent on Brexit, but that is something definitely that we're looking into as well, and the way in which we can develop that. It's easy for us from the start to trial with the information that we hold, of course, rather than trying to put data sharing agreements in place, but that is something that we are looking into.
Can we go into a 15-minute break? Thank you very much,
More than welcome.
Phil. Thank you very much, John. They're going to hang around for a little while.
Yes, we will be around.
Come and ask any other questions, and there will be an opportunity at the end. So should we take a 15-minute break and come back for a little bit more information?
Thank you. Thanks very much.